Okay, we are here ready to begin our coil weaving. And before we get started, I want to take a few moments to talk about our plan that we got ready yesterday, and also a big part of what coil weaving is about. So in textile pieces, you are working with texture, and you're wanting to not only create something that's beautiful, something that is possibly usable, but visually appealing. And so texture is going to play a big role in what we're about to begin creating today. We're going to be using different yarns. There are different textures of yarns that are available. There are thick yarns. There are fuzzy yarns. We saw this in the primary example, fuzzy, thick, furry yarns. We have natural grasses, and sometimes the natural grasses that you use are real, and sometimes they are synthetic. This is a synthetic or artificial example, recycled from plastic bags, but it gives the idea of the natural grasses and is more pliable and usable. We also have texture from something like twine, and I showed that example in this piece that I created a while back. So texture, creating interest in the textures you use. Now let's look at some of the tools that you're going to be using to create your coil weaving. So this is the cotton bundle that is available to you from the public library, and this is the example I'm going to be using, and it has already been bundled for you. I said the other day, I talked about clothesline that I got in Alpine at True Value, and this is an example of a cotton clothesline, and you can see that the coil weaving using this bundle is much smaller than even this diameter, and then what we're going to be using for this thickness. Okay, so this, if you want to continue coil weaving and you really enjoy what we're about to begin, once we get into it, this is a really inexpensive way of having a cotton bundle, and you can see that it comes in a good length to create with, and it's pretty pliable and flexible, so you can bend it and curve it however you want to. But for our purposes, I'm going to teach you using this thicker cotton bundle. And I'm going to start with my end cut on a slant. So I'm going to cut on a diagonal. If you received yours from the library and it is blunt like this, just take a moment and cut on a diagonal. And find the color that you want to start with. We talked about yesterday making a plan, and I have decided to make a small bowl. We'll see if I have enough of my bundle to do that, with my walls slightly going out after creating the base. It really depends on what you're interested in doing, what colors you like, what textures you want to use as you are creating. On this example, I did mostly my twine. So I started in the middle and then I continued out, randomly adding this baker's twine in black and white as I went. You can be very random. You can be a little more specific. On this example with my clothesline, I'm doing 3 of the color and then 1 of the natural seagrass. 3 of the color and then 1 of the natural seagrass. On this example that I created, I have the orange middle, the red orange, and then 1 twine, 1 blue, 1 twine, and then 1 red orange. So then after I started with the middle, then I created a pattern of every other one. And you can see that that creates a completely different look than this idea. It really is up to you and your imagination. Maybe you really don't know on this first coil weaving what you're wanting to do. So maybe this time we just try things out, and then maybe you go back to the store, to the hardware store, and you buy some more and you do some more on your own and figure out really what you're interested in doing. This first part is what I think is the hardest part of starting this entire weaving, is getting the middle and getting this first part turned into a coil and holding it firmly. You're going to also need the steel needle to be attaching the yarn to the coils. So make sure that you have also not only received the cotton bundle, but also the metal needle. So I do not like my white bundle showing or my small clothesline cotton showing in the middle. So I always take a bit of hot glue and put just a little bit of hot glue here to begin my coil weaving, to make sure that that sticks. Covering that white part as much as possible. And so far you can see that I've only wrapped the very tip or corner of that diagonal cut. Just gonna add a touch more. I would ask my loved one, I know that you're older, but I would definitely ask for assistance doing the very beginning with the glue gun. If you don't have a glue gun, you do not have to start this way, but I've just found that it helps me, especially once we start coiling and turning the bundle in a few moments. It helps all of these yarn pieces stay in place. Okay, so far, this is the beginning of our weaving. But Mrs. Barlow, you're not weaving. You're right. Right now, I am just wrapping yarn around my bundle. The weaving is when we start using our needle and we start connecting the bundle together. So right now, I am holding my bundle with one hand and holding my yarn with my other hand, and I'm wrapping tightly. Notice that it's not loose or hanging off of the bundle. I am firmly wrapping around. And how long do I do this? Well, you have to start in the middle. This example, you can see I actually have a hole. I don't typically like to have holes in the bottom of my weavings. Okay, you can see in this example that the entire one is full. But we're going to have to wrap long enough to be able to start curving this and then attaching. Okay, so you can see as I just bent that yes, it is starting to curve, but it's not ready to be attached. So I'm just going to keep going. And you can stop every once in a while, and you can see how I'm holding this with my thumb to make sure that it's not coming undone, and I can start trying to curve this. I probably need another rotation, so I'm just going to keep going. I said on the video yesterday that I love to weave. It's rhythmic, it is soothing to me. And you just get in a pattern and in a flow. Okay, so let's take a moment and let's try to curve this. If you are trying to start your bundle and you're having a hard time, you can see how my fingers are struggling, and I've done this many times, but you're having a hard time holding it, you're having a hard time getting your needle ready, then ask someone to help you for just a minute. Ask a loved one to maybe hold it for you. What happens if you let it go? Well, you just let it go. I've rolled or coiled so tightly with my yarn that it's not coming undone. And so I can see by turning it that it is ready to start attaching. I'm going to put my coil down for just a second, and I'm going to get my yarn ready. My yarn that I'm using is something from my grandmother, and it's coming really neatly out of this package, but that's not going to be good for me for very long. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So I have put my yarn onto my needle, and this is where the beginning gets really tricky. If you need someone to help you hold your bundle as you're beginning, then call for a loved one, ask a sibling to come and help you. So we're going to turn our bundle, getting it as tight as possible. And now this is the part where you're going to start attaching the yarn to the bundle. Okay, yes, we've already been coiling it. We've been wrapping it around so that we're creating this color over the bundle. But now we're going to start attaching. So when we attach, we take, and you can see I'm even struggling. It's just hard to get started. And I actually, if you mess up, just take it apart a little bit. I noticed that I actually want to attach a little closer right here. So I just unwrapped for just a minute. Okay, so I'm going to take my needle that is attached to the thread that I've been wrapping with. I'm going to come up through the middle and pull out to where I stopped wrapping. I'm going to do that again. Pull up through the middle and pull out where I stopped wrapping. This is a crucial moment because if you loosen up, then it's going to start coming undone or unraveling. So you're attaching and then, oh, see, it just happened to me. Just gonna push that back up. And now I'm gonna take my yarn. My needle is still attached, but it's over to the side. And it came apart. That even happens to teachers. So what I'm gonna do is unwrap just a little bit more because I feel like I'm needing to get that closer in. Not so far out. Get that a little tighter. And do the same thing again. Pull out, come back up through the middle, pull out tightly. And since this is my first attach, I'm going to go another time. Really make sure I've got that good. Okay, there. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've wrapped. Now I'm going to bring my needle up, pull up from the middle, and come out to the side. You're going to wrap 6 times and attach 2. Okay, so we are wrapping 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then attaching. If you find that that is not the pattern that kind of you're wanting once you get going, you can wrap more than 6 times, but getting started at the base, we are making sure that the coil bundle is attached to get that good firm base. If you have an area that the white is showing through, you can just take your fingers and move it, but once you continue, that's not going to be seen. So you're wrapping every 6, you're stopping, and attaching. Still right now coming from the middle. And as we continue to coil, then I will teach you how to attach on the other coils that you're creating. Okay, you can see that I am almost out of my first yarn that I cut. So I've taken my needle off and I'm going to show you how to add more yarn if you run out. This is also how you change colors or how you change textures. If you now wanted to move to a natural grass or a twine, it would be the same way that we're about to add now. I'm going to continue with my red a little bit longer. Going ahead and putting my needle through one end and just putting that over to the side because I'm not using that just yet, and I'm finding the other end of my yarn, and I have finished by attaching, and I'm going to bring this back up and I'm going to lay it flat like so, and you're going to end one thread of yarn by starting the next one. So I'm just going to put the new one right next to the area where I stopped. I'm going to hold it with my thumb and I'm going to start wrapping, and as I wrap I have automatically covered the end that I just started with. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm ready to attach with my needle. Still pulling up from the middle and pulling out, pulling up, pulling my thread through and out. You can see my old yarn is still there. That's okay because we're going to be covering it up in just a minute. 1, 2. Two, 3, 4. You can see we've almost got that old yarn covered up with the new yarn that we've started. I'm just going to keep curving my bundle. And now I'm getting close. Well, I have a knot. Just a little patience. You can get this undone. When you're wrapping and you're attaching, it's really easy for that to happen. We are getting close to starting a second coil around, and as we do that, I'm going to teach you how to attach to the next layer of coils. Still going into the middle because I don't have that next layer yet. And you can see that I am almost already out of my yarn that I just added. So if that bothers you, that transition was hard for you and you did not like starting your new color or your color again, then I would suggest that you have quite a long piece of string. I know that in times past when I've been working with students, sometimes the long string confuses them or frustrates them, it gets in their way. So it really is up to you and what you prefer, what works better for you in what you're trying to do. So once again, to change your string, to change your color, to add more, or to go to a texture, you're going to lay the old flat with your bundle and hold. You're going to take the new right up next to where you stopped, and you're going to start wrapping that, covering it up, and I'm already ready to attach. So I'm going to take my needle. This is why some of my students don't like using long pieces. First of all, they get tangled easier. And second of all, you got to pull for a while. But it's a good way of not having to change your yarn all the time. Okay, back to wrapping. pull to the outside, come up through the middle. Okay, we are finally creating multiple rows of our coil, so we can start coming to this part to attach. So we're still going to come up from the bottom, but instead of coming from the middle, we're going to come to this part of the coil. And that is why you have these metal needles, so that you're able to go through the thicknesses. You're not like sewing through anything. That's not what you're doing with the needle. You're going through layers of in between the bundles and the yarn. Okay, so you attach 2 times and then wrap. 3, 4, 5, 6. And now that I am finished with the very middle of the bottom of my coil, I'm going to start going 6 and then go from 6 to 10. So I'm going to wrap 10 and then attach 2. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you can see how close our attached pieces were. That's just to get a good steady start, a good strong base. But now I've decided that I don't want to attach that many times so close together. That's part of creating the pattern as well when you're creating coil weavings. Three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to curve it, hold firmly, come up to this next coil. Remember, we're not going to the middle anymore. Now that we have our layer, pull out tightly. Put your needle right back up through the first attaching site and attach and continue. You're going to continue this. This is the base that you are creating for your coil weaving. We did not really draw what we thought the base would look like, but we did look at some examples. This is more of a flat wall hanging coil weaving. And then we had the example of the basket with walls that pretty much went straight up with the bottom. And then we had the example of the base that had the flat and then gradually went to the sides. We're not worried about our sides right now. What we're worried about is creating this base. And so think about the diameter. of your base and how wide across you're going to want it. If I were to stop here on this coil weaving, then my piece would be very narrow and thin. Okay, so if I did not want it to be so narrow, then I would continue creating more of a width around. And that's going to be the same idea for the base that we're creating now. We're going to pause here and then we will come back tomorrow, and tomorrow we will continue working on the base of our coil weaving, and then I will show you how to change to a new color or texture and how to continue attaching.